Are you interested in improving your gut health, but maybe have picky eaters at home that prevent you from eating the diverse produce that you hope to? Well, I'm here to show you 2 easy meals for picky eaters that specifically help to support gut health. Hi, I'm Jessie Gutsu. I'm a registered dietitian with Oswald Digestive Clinic. If you're interested in more gut healthy cooking tips, then check out the link below for our 5 tips for quicker gut healthy cooking. Okay, so I was just in the midst of making one of my favorite meals, which are sheet pan meals. And it's the perfect time of year because it's fall and I have a lot of vegetables available. I find root vegetables to be really helpful with picky eaters because they're carbohydrate rich. So they have that little bit of sweetness that help to ease a picky eater into various different types of foods. So we have our sweet potato. I have a little leftover acorn squash, some onion, and Brussels sprouts. And we are going to chop these up, make our dressing, and toss them onto a sheet pan. All right, so let's get started with our squash. Now, acorn squash, the skin is relatively soft, so you can choose to either keep the skin on or peel it. It's up to you. If you're dealing with a picky eater, you might find more success by peeling. Here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to slice these into moon shapes. And sometimes with picky eaters, it just depends on what the food looks like. This is pretty fun to eat, and it might be enticing for one that isn't normally open to eating the squash. Now, these squash are yellow-orange in color. You know they contain vitamin A, and they also contain soluble fiber. And soluble fiber is the fiber that slows and makes this gel-like consistency in our colon. Because after all, what is gut health? It really is the activity and the vibrancy of our healthy bacteria that are found in our colon or our large intestine. So the bacteria really like soluble fiber because they're able to ferment them and to create some really healthful things called short-chain fatty acids. And these short-chain fatty acids do a lot of different things. One of the things that these short-chain fatty acids do is to help create a really strong lining of our intestine. And that strong barrier helps our immune system ultimately. So we'll continue to slice these into little moon shapes and toss them on our sheet pan. Now I have a stone sheet pan, and I really like stone when I am roasting my vegetables because it helps to conduct heat better. It takes a little bit longer to heat up, but I find that the evenness of cooking is better. You get a little bit more brownness with these veggies that are higher in sugar, and it just makes for a great flavor. So next we'll move to our sweet potato. I'm just cutting off some of the rough areas, and then we'll chop these up. Again, I love a sweet potato skin. If you'd prefer to skin your sweet potato, you may. You will lose a little bit of that fiber. So we're keeping with a consistent shape that we made earlier with our acorn squash. One of the things with sheet pan meals is you want to make sure the size and the shape is very uniform so that cooking is consistent throughout all the food that's on the pan. Again, sweet potatoes are really great sources of soluble fiber. They also have potassium, which helps with blood pressure. And of course, that pigment, this orangish color, it has vitamin A. So it supports your eye health. And all these phytonutrients that are found in our produce help to feed our gut microbiome. So they help to feed those beneficial bacteria. And bacteria in our gut can change in a matter of a couple of days. Sometimes you find with picky eaters that even just cutting them in different shapes will do the trick. And next, we're adding Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are a cruciferous vegetable. They contain a chemical called glucosinolates. Glucosinolates will convert to create sulforaphane. And ultimately, what Brussels sprouts and the rest of cruciferous vegetables are best known for is phase 2 detoxification. And making sure that we reduce the overall oxidation or oxidative stress in our body helps to improve our overall gut microbiome. And by doing a better job of detoxifying, that helps our overall gut health. You can tell your picky eater that these are the cutest little mini cabbages and encourage them to eat them with a little bit of honey. So with Brussels sprouts, they also contain vitamin K, vitamin C, all healthy vitamins and minerals. And all you do to prepare these is wash them and chop off the ends. And then for the bigger ones, you make sure you either half them or quarter them. So your picky eater might not be a fan of red onion, but something a little less intimidating could be green onions or scallions. Scallions are helpful to add a little bit of flavor, but with all fruits and vegetables, when you vary the types and the colors, you introduce different nutrients to your gut microbiome that helps to create a more diverse microbiome. This does two things. Number one, you want a lot of the beneficial bacteria, but eating a more diverse diet introduces different bugs into our colon. It also helps to push out the bad bacteria that you don't want. So it works in two ways. So what we'll do is we'll actually top our cooked veggies with this. Finally, and I'm sure your picky eater will enjoy these. These are my favorite type of sausage. They're chicken sausage, and they're pretty much always a hit in our house. They also make for a very easy weeknight meal. They're fully cooked, contain chicken and vegetables and spices and herbs, and that's it. So to cut these quickly, we'll lay them out on a pan, sort of push them diagonally, and then you cut them into fancy little slants. Okay, so all that goes on the sheet pan, and then we make a very quick dressing. So we'll start with a couple tablespoons of Dijon mustard. A great emulsifier for any dressing, adds a ton of flavor. It also adds a little bit of tang, so it helps our digestive enzymes get going. And one of the things that was really necessary for gut health is making sure that we actually digest and absorb the food we eat. Mustard is helpful for that. We also add a little bit of acid. This apple cider vinegar contains a prebiotic and therefore is a beneficial addition to this dressing. So we have that little bit of acid, and then we'll cut the acid with a little bit of honey. And of course, honey is a nice way to reduce the acidity, but it also adds just the touch of sweetness that sometimes picky eaters need in order to enjoy a meal full of different colors. Then we add a little bit of salt for flavor. Season with some salt and pepper. And a little bit of paprika, just a quarter teaspoon. And a couple cloves of garlic. Now, garlic contains allicin, and when allicin is chopped up, it's also very helpful in detoxification. Garlic is also very helpful for your heart. And finally, we'll whisk this dressing together, and then we will drizzle in olive oil. This is a nice healthy fat, contains a lot of unsaturated, polyunsaturated fats and antioxidants that are really good for creating a healthy microbiome. Okay, while our sheet pan meal is baking, I'm going to show you a second meal that will easily please your picky eater and help to support their gut health at the same time. Okay, so this is our autumn sheet pan meal on our stone, and all we're going to do is drizzle the mixture we just made over top, and we'll toss it a little bit with our hands and then roast it. It's just about as easy as it gets with a lot of different colors and flavors. And the little bit of honey and the familiar sausage, all these things are really helpful in introducing new foods to a picky eater. When you're introducing something new to a picky eater, what you want to make sure is you keep a familiar food or a food format. So if they really like sausage, combine it with these maybe newer vegetables to help ease the scariness of them. When you have one familiar ingredient, it just always makes it a little bit easier. You can also toss this in a bowl if you'd like, but to make this even easier and limit the dishes, I always toss it on the pan itself, making sure just to coat everything, and then we'll toss it in the oven for 20 or 30 minutes, roast it, and pull it out, and it's ready to go. So that's our first meal. Our second easy meal for picky eaters that will help support gut health is yogurt. So yogurt might not sound like a traditional meal per se, but when you get a really good quality yogurt and you add a lot of add-ins that can help your gut health, then it really leads to a meal for a very quick night. Okay, so I like to buy plain Greek yogurt that's organic. And yogurt, of course, is one of your best sources of probiotics. So we like to introduce new bugs into our gut microbiome. And that's by way of probiotics. Yogurt is one of the best sources of a probiotic that we eat in our day-to-day. So the probiotic is the actual bug that's in your gut microbiome. And then we want to make sure we're feeding those bugs with the right colors in different foods. So we'll get into our toppings to help with that. This is a very simple recipe, but it's a really satiating meal. So I'm using organic Greek yogurt that increases the protein as well, which will help to stabilize their blood sugars and lead to fullness. So we'll start with the yogurt, and then we're adding in some pomegranate, walnuts, pepitas or pumpkin seeds, and then a little bit of cinnamon and honey. This is the way to jazz up plain Greek yogurt so it isn't quite as tangy just by itself. What I did is froze my pomegranate. I find freezing pomegranate to be the easiest way to get the arils out. So I've frozen this for a couple of hours, and then I'm just going to cut it into the center on each of these little indents, not all the way through. So pomegranates and walnuts are one of the best sources of ellagic acid. And ellagic acid is a polyphenol that's really beneficial for a lot of different types of systems in your body, but it really helps with longevity, with reducing cells that just are sort of dead and hanging around and not being helpful. A really great antioxidant. So we have this cut almost to the center, and then I'll pull out each of these segments. So having frozen pomegranate reduces the amount of splatter that happens when you're pulling these arils out of their container. It also just makes it's one of the easiest ways I've found for the task that tends to be a little bit more tedious. This color of the pomegranates and the size and the shape, it's one of those things that really helps a picky eater be a little bit more accepting of new foods. I've also seen people drop their pomegranate into a bowl of water so it reduces the splatter. I will say that freezing the pomegranate beforehand is the way that makes this task so much easier and cleaner. Pomegranate also contain a little bit of fiber and potassium and magnesium and lots of different nutrients. But these polyphenols are one of the best ways to feed our microbiome. Microbiomes can change in a matter of days. One of the ways to make the best of your microbiome is by eating 30 or 40 different types of plants over a week. And if you think about how the average person eats, we tend to stick with the same old fruits and vegetables or plants. So that includes grains and legumes as well, and nuts and seeds. But pomegranates is one I think people shy away from just because it's a little bit more laborious. That's why freezing it is so helpful. Of course, you can find them frozen, and I do love frozen fruit in my yogurt to make it a nice, satisfying meal. I will often have frozen wild blueberries in as well to add a rich, deep color that helps to satisfy that microbiome. You can also add in lots of different nuts and seeds. You could find some raw cacao or even mini chocolate chips, because even just a little bit of sweetness or familiarity is sometimes the ticket that helps to introduce different foods to a picky eater. Eventually, after they get familiar with a food with some introduction, like say honey or a little chocolate chip, then they might eat the thing plain and they've diversified their diet. And a diverse diet is the key to creating a healthy microbiome. One that's active and robust, has lots of healthy, beneficial bacteria and fewer bad bacteria. So there's our bowl with all of our pomegranate. So I mentioned walnuts being a great source of ellagic acid. They're also one of the best nut sources of omega-3s, which can be really helpful to reduce inflammation and really supportive of the gut-brain axis. So we'll just chop some of these up just a little bit. These are raw. I do tend to get raw nuts and seeds because it eliminates any of the unhealthier fats and sugars. So then we'll add a little bit of pepita. All of these nuts and seeds also add in things like vitamin E and manganese and iron and zinc, really nutrients and trace minerals that we don't tend to get enough of in our diet. Finally, we'll top it off with a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of honey. And like I said, if you need a little bit of honey to help to introduce certain foods, like all of this goodness, into a picky eater's diet, then I think that it is well worth it. So there you have it. There are 2 meals that are easy for picky eaters that help support their gut health. We have a Greek yogurt bowl, and you can jazz this up with a lot of different rich color fruits and nuts and seeds. And you also have your autumn sheet pan meal. And that is familiar because you have the sausage in there. And then it's a way to introduce various different root vegetables or different veggies that can be roasted and really help to introduce a variety of different nutrients, because at its root, gut bacteria really love a diverse diet. So really look for ways to introduce different fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and different grains and legumes in order to diversify our beneficial bacteria and make them the most robust that they can be. If you enjoyed this video and you're interested in more videos such as this, then email us at cookingdemos@Oswald Digestive Clinic. I'd love to see you again. Thanks for watching.